Sync? My dear friends, it's that time of year again. And I want to preface by saying this list could absolutely change because there are a ton of almost certainly incredible films that I have yet to see. There's about 1 million rolling down the screen right now. I mean, look at all those movies. Holy smokes, that's a lot of movies. So while it's very possible that movies like Babylon, The Quiet Girl, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, the soccer football movie would have made their way onto this list, I haven't seen them yet. So these 10 will have to do. Now, if you were around last year, you know that I did a top 5 in the Lord's year of 2021, but 2022 delivered so many outstanding projects that I cannot in good conscience slice the list down to just 5. So we're doubling it, baby. We're doubling it. Go kind of big or go home is what I always say. But before I talk about those, I could not live with myself if I didn't shout out some of the other magnificent pieces of art that graced me eyeballs this year. So a big ol' shout out to God's Creatures, Athena, Hellraiser, Barbarian, The Fablemans, The Tragedy of Macbeth, Kimmy, Turning Red, Brian and Charles, The Batman, We're All Going to the World's Fair, Pinocchio, RRR, Jackass Forever, Cha Cha Real Smooth, Decision to Leave, Men, Triangle of Sadness, Fire of Love, Bones and All, Gerard Carmichael's Rothaniel, Bodies, 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 and Skinamarink. And about 1 million more, but come on people, we haven't got all day, let's go.
I need danger, the hunt, a challenge. I need a great case.
Locke, there's someone here for you. With a box.
Rian Johnson. What a king this man is. Since 2005, he's been making banger after banger after banger after banger, please don't start, after banger. And he shows no indication of slowing down anytime soon because I adored Glass Onion with all my heart.
I love you.
He was able to breathe life back into the whodunit way back in 2019, and he continues to prove himself as one of the smartest, funniest, and most capable directors working right now. Glass Onion is very possibly the most fun I've had watching a movie all year. It's not often that I finish a nearly 2.5 hour long movie and I immediately, the moment the credits stop rolling, I want to hit the replay button. That's rare. The way everything is presented is so clever and how it guides you and misdirects you, unfolding this mystery in a way that drove me insane, trying to figure out what the Eureka reveal will be at the end. And the editing especially is so purposeful in the way it cuts around certain events to keep the mystery interesting. So good. Magnificent cast too. Everyone did such a wonderful job. But Daniel Craig, man, as long as he and Rian Johnson's name are on a movie, I will always be first in line for the next Benoit Blanc mystery. Love it. Good morning, class. Welcome to Tension Building 101. Your instructor will be Rodrigo Sorogoyen. Because holy shit, this movie got me sweating bullets. The Beasts is a story of 2 sets of neighbors, the Frenchman and his wife, Antoine and Olga, and the Spanish brothers, Zan and Loren. They live in a semi-abandoned village in the Spanish countryside that is on the verge of being sold to a huge wind energy company, resulting in a gargantuan payout for all the current inhabitants. The Spanish brothers want this more than anything in the world, and the Frenchman and his wife are actively stopping it from happening by being the only community members voting against it. And so begins our conflict. Conversations become threats. Threats become childish pranks become life-ruining sabotage becomes violence. The conflict between these sets of characters ramp up in such a violent rubber band kind of way, leading to something that you desperately don't want to happen, but by the time we get to the second act, you know it's unavoidable. Leading into a third act story shift that is so fascinating, and it drives the whole thing home in such a beautiful way that I couldn't even dare hint at what it is. I don't want to spoil it. Something I think that's really clever about this movie is how it blurs the line between protagonist and antagonist. It very, very clearly sets up that the Frenchman and his wife are the heroes of the story, and the Spanish brothers are the villains of the story. But as the movie trucks along, and as we learn more about these characters and their motivations, the line between hero and villain is blurred and in some ways completely thrown away altogether. There's a pretty big caveat to that sentence, but it would spoil the movie, so I'm not going to say it. But if you watch it, you'll get what I mean. They are both the antagonists in each other's stories, and they're both the heroes of their own stories. I think this movie is brilliantly directed, performed, and shot. The moral core of this movie is very interesting to think about, and the building of tension is out of this world. stressful as all hell. Probably the most stressful I've been watching a movie this year. Love this movie.
Fanboy, you see him?
Nothing on the radar up ahead. He must be somewhere behind us. We don't get fooled again.
Earlier this year, if you told me that the sequel to Top Gun, of all things, one of my least favorite iconic movies of all time, would be in my top 10 of the year, I would have squinted my eyes at you and said, how do you know that? Top Gun Maverick is a very, very simple movie, but I mean that in an overwhelmingly complimentary way. It takes a very solid core concept and it just refines that concept down to a supremely tight blockbuster action movie. I feel like the word blockbuster has kind of been tainted in my mind. I find myself associating that word with some of my least favorite kinds of movies, mostly big studio projects with the sole intention of making someone an outrageous amount of that sweet, sweet coin. But if there's anyone on this earth who knows how to revitalize my love for large-scale blockbusters, it's Jonathan Cruise and his outrageous dedication to his films. He does it every month when I rewatch the Mission Impossible movies, and he sure as hell did it this year with Top Gun Maverick, without a doubt, the best action movie of the year. One of the things that I was most apprehensive about was the geography of the action scenes. When there's a bunch of big gray fighter jets zooming around a blank blue sky, it would be extremely easy for things to get muddled, incomprehensible, just really boring. But Joseph Kosinski and his incredible editor Eddie Hamilton, who also did Mission Impossible Fallout, made the action not only clear and understandable, but absurdly exciting and beautiful. The sequences are the kind that make me want to stand up in the theater and just scream out loud and cheer. Seeing this movie for the first time especially was such a special experience. It was awesome. The things that they were able to accomplish practically are out of this world, and the whole crew's love and dedication to doing this whole thing as authentically as possible is pouring out of the screen the entire runtime. And underneath all that incredible action is a very heartfelt story, and it's clear that the writers put just as much heart and soul into the script as the editors and the DP did into the presentation. Again, the story is very, very simple, but they use that to their advantage, and the heart shines through in a way that you don't often see anymore, especially in big blockbusters. Top Gun did the unimaginable, and it made me nostalgic for a movie that I don't even like. If there's one movie that I'm glad I saw in theaters this year, it's Top Gun.
Didn't you feel triumphant? Now we can really understand what the meaning of music is. It's the way it makes you feel when you hear it.
Listen, honesty is at the foundation of every good relationship, so I'm going to level with you here and just admit something that I'm not proud of. For the first little chunk there of Todd Field's Tar, I just wasn't into it. I just couldn't get a read on what it really was, you know what I mean? But, hear me out. As the movie slowly started putting its cards on the table, slowly started revealing what it was, I became physically incapable of moving my eyes away from the screen. Tar is so, at risk of sounding egregiously pretentious, Tar is so rich and meticulously structured, man. Holy. It has this quality to it that every single thing that appears on screen, no matter how big or small, was placed there with a very specific reason. Every book in the background, every pluck of a cello string, every raise of an eyebrow, every trip. It's so specific in what it's trying to do and say, and I think it ended up working incredibly well. I found this tale of riches to rags so fascinating, so tragic. Where we see Lydia at the beginning of this movie versus where we see her at the end is so depressing in one of the funniest ways. This movie is so strange, and I think it's clear that I have a very hard time talking about this movie. It's something that desperately needs to be seen more than once, and I need to find time to watch it a few more times for sure. But even acknowledging that I've only seen it once, it still left a huge enough impression on me that it made it into the top 10 immediately. Anyway, it's really good. You should definitely see it, if not just to experience Cate Blanchett's career best performance, without a doubt, and probably my second favorite performance of the whole year. The Northman is a special kind of movie. It's the kind of movie that makes me want to tear off all my clothes, clench my fists, and just run around the forest, beating the shit out of anything that moves. The Northman is a snarling animal of a movie. It's a rabid beast of a tale that grabbed me by the throat from the moment those thunderous drums started rattling my seat in the theater, and it never let go. Robert Eggers made a really smart move with this film, and he rejected his normal small-scale thrillery style that we've come to love him for. He completely pushed that approach away and made one of the most aggressive movies I've ever bore witness to. The Northman is angry. It's violent. It's loud. And I adored every single second of it. Having it be a significant deviation from his last two movies isn't to say it's any worse though, or that it's lacking any of the artistry of his other movies. No, not at all. His style is still here in full force with the beautiful visuals, the immersive soundscapes, and an absolutely disgusting attention to historical detail. This is definitely a Robert Eggers film, no question about it. He just knew that telling an angry Viking revenge story wouldn't be as impactful if he made it the same way he did The Lighthouse or The Witch. The Northman needed to be this loud, it needed to be this aggressive, this violent. The Northman needed to have Alexander Skarsgård running around screaming while he pillaged villages, you know what I mean? The Northman is exactly what it should be. It's now my definitive piece of Viking media, and it 100% deserves the number 6 spot. Well, here we are. I don't know how the hell it manages to get even better than those, but there were 5 more movies that absolutely knocked me on my ass this year. I know we've been here for a little bit longer than I was expecting, so why don't you go to the bathroom, have a snack, hug your grandma, go watch The Beasts, do whatever you need to do, and then we can keep trucking along, huh? Oh, okay, wow, that was quick. Alright, here is number 5.
If you see me walking down the street and I start to cry each time we meet.
I don't think a movie has ever grown on me the way Nope did. I really respect Jordan Peele as a director. I think he has a lot of really, really cool ideas. And it's not often you see someone this creative and this interesting get so much studio support. I will always be interested in whatever the guy has cooking. On my first viewing, I came out of Nope with a very solid, 3.5 out of 5. Very solid. I wasn't expecting that to change too much. Maybe bump up to a 4, maybe. But after a few days, I found it still tumbling around in my dome. So I watched it again, and again, and then I bought the 4K Blu-ray, and then I returned the 4K Blu-ray because somebody stole the disc, and I bought it again. And after my 4th viewing on this glorious 4K Discorino right here, the rating is bumped from a 3.5 to a very, very confident 5 out of 5 for me. I fucking adore this movie. Where Top Gun took me back to an older era of blockbuster, something that was breathing new life into an old formula, Nope is what I want blockbusters to be now. This is what happens when a very, very talented artist actually gets to unleash his pure vision onto the world with a big, big, big old budget. And it's fucking awesome. It's magnificent, man. I think it has really, really interesting and thoughtful subject matter, talking all about the dangerous obsession that humans have with spectacle and the lengths that will go to capture that spectacle, and the way that human beings deal with sudden grief. It's really interesting theming that isn't explored very often in film, especially big mainstream features like this. It's fun to let tumble around in your brain for a little while. And the story that subject matter is wrapped in is one of the most exciting, entertaining, and gorgeous movies of the year. Just like Glass Onion, I didn't feel the length of this at all. I've seen it 100,000 times now, and it feels like it gets shorter every time, for God's sake. It is so much fun in a way that I can't even describe. It gets me excited, physically excited, scooching forward in my seat, cheering along like I'm at a football game. It gets me feeling the type of way that very few movies can. Even Top Gun didn't get me feeling this way. It's somehow able to balance this really thoughtful and beautiful subject matter with this absurdly entertaining and fun plotline and execution, and it mashes it together so seamlessly and naturally, and it's gorgeous. I love it. Killer performances from everyone too. The more I see of him, the more I'm convinced that Daniel Kaluuya is in the top 5 best actors working today, and Keke Palmer is such a joy to watch. Brandon Perea and Michael Wincott are fucking hilarious, and Steven Yeun always crushing it. And I have to give a shout out to Michael Abels for cranking out one of my favorite scores all year. So good. Elevates the action sequences on a way that I can't even describe. I love this movie. It makes me excited and nervous to see whatever Jordan Peele's next movie is going to be, because it's going to be really hard to top this movie. But if he's able to, oh man. I have no doubt that it'll be good no matter what, but Oh man, if he can top Nope, it'll be something really special. Martin Mercadona. He is one of my very favorite directors, and I think this man right here is one of the most slept upon filmmakers working these days. Despite all of his movies being really well received, especially Three Billboards, it got a lot of Oscar buzz. It seems like his name very rarely gets brought up. Well, Marty, my man, I'm here for you. And I'm here to say that you have officially outdone yourself. The Banshees of Inisherin is basically as perfect as you can get, and it's the ultimate representation of what I love so much about Martin McDonagh's filmmaking. This is the funniest movie of the year, without a doubt in my mind. The screenplay is so tight, and it's so funny in a very, very specific kind of way that not everyone will adore. But if it clicks with you, I'm confident that it will be one of your new all-time favorites. But, and here's where Marty's writing prowess comes on in. His outstanding screenplay makes Banshees the funniest movie of the year, but also managed to be one of the most depressing and beautiful, often at the same time somehow. The balance that this cast and crew are able to pull off is so natural. You can go from crying with laughter to crying with sadness in a matter of moments, and it never ever feels jarring. The actors that they have striking this balance are some of the best to ever do it, man. They all knock it straight home with how beautiful they're able to pull off this dialogue. There's a scene between Kerry Condon and Barry Keoghan, and it's one of my favorite scenes of the whole year. That scene has been replaying in my head ever since I saw the movie. It's wonderful. It's got the best score of the year, and it beautifully captures a very strange and very specific feeling of someone leaving your life. I adore it. Thank you.
Over to the left, yeah. 8. And now just the green button. Boom, baby. You got this.
So imagine there is a spectrum of film tones. The Northman is all the way over here on this angry, aggressive side. That means all the way over here, where you can't even see my hand, all the way over here, is Marcel the Shell. In his own little nook off to the side of Paddington and Amelie, Marcel the Shell gets my official nice award for the year. Because it's just such a nice movie. So sweet, so gentle. The visuals and the plucky little score perfectly complement this beautiful little story about this beautiful little crustacean. This is the best screenplay of the year. I swear to you, I'm not kidding when I say that some of the most beautiful poetic dialogue to ever cross my ears came out of this shell's mouth. A story all about the value of family and making the most of the hand you're dealt is something that demands a great screenplay, and fuck does it ever deliver. There's about a 0% chance that this gets to the Academy's eyes, but my god, this deserves the best original screenplay Golden Man. I adore this movie. If you could take the feeling of someone you love giving you a big hug and transfer it to the screen, it would be Marcel the Shell.
Talk to you soon. Wow, 这个电梯好快哦。
I really had a good time with Swiss Army Man, so I was pretty confident that Everything Everywhere was going to be good. But I had no idea how good it was going to be. I mean, holy smokes, man. Not only did they exceed their work in Swiss Army Man, but they kicked that movie's ass. No disrespect to Swiss Army Man, but Everything Everywhere is almost overwhelmingly good. The movie is constantly doing a million different things at any given moment, but somehow every single one of those things is done perfectly. There is so much love put into this movie that even the most outrageous thing you've ever seen can come across as nothing less than beautiful. This is the only movie ever made where in one moment I'll be laughing my ass off at a guy fighting Michelle Yeoh with a giant butt plug sticking out of his ass, and in the next moment I will be crying my eyes out at some of the most heart-wrenching filmmaking I've seen in a very long time. And it never feels jarring when it's not supposed to. From start to finish, one scene perfectly gels into the next to make for one of the most wonderful ways you could spend 2.5 hours. And for people who want to make films or get into the arts in any way, shape, or form, this has to be one of the most inspiring pieces of media I've ever seen. You can do it. In the current climate of mainstream film, if something this off-kilter and weird, something this creative and fresh can be outrageously successful, then it's proof that if your heart is in it, you can do it. and I love that.
Okie dokie, if that's better. Oh. What's that? Oh my god, what even is that?
These are my moves.
Oh, that's so embarrassing.
That's not embarrassing.
The movie that makes me want to cry just by saying the name. When I tell you that I adore the movies we've talked about up to this point, please believe me when I say I really, really mean it. Some of my new all-time favorites came out of this year. Also, take my love of those films into consideration when I say that After Sun is the best movie I've seen in maybe the last decade. Charlotte Wells' debut feature, holy shit, what a debut by the way, clicked with me on a level that I experience once like every 5 to 10 years. When I wrote about Everything Everywhere on Letterboxd, I said that it would take something very special to knock it out of the first place. And it turns out that something special was a dad and daughter on vacation. After Sun captures depression in a way that I have never seen before. Truthfully, I have no idea how they did it, but the humanity that spills off the screen here is out of this world. Despite the fact that you're generally seeing happy imagery, the feeling that something is wrong or that something will go wrong is always present there, and it's haunting. Irrational anxiety and depression is a deeply unique feeling. That hatred of yourself and the sadness you have for the world around you despite everything being fine is an awful, awful feeling, and a very, very difficult one to describe, let alone capture through a film. And After Sun did that, and it did it extraordinarily well. Paul Mescal gives one of the most genuine and honest portrayals of a depressed man I've ever seen. There were lots of moments in this movie that it felt like I was looking in a much more handsome mirror, and it was one of the most soul-crushing and emotional experiences I've ever had watching a movie before. After Sun didn't change me, but it showed me myself in a way that no movie has ever done before, and no movie will ever do again, I don't think. This is an extraordinary movie. Outstanding work from every single person involved. I want to give every member of the cast and crew a hug. I love this movie. And that's it. 2022 was one of the most absurdly good years for movies I've seen in a long time. I mean, every year is great, but 2022 felt different for some reason. The rebirth of the blockbuster, some of the best indies I've seen in years, and everything in between was just outstanding. So here's to 2023. The list of directors that I love that have movies coming out this year is absurd, and I'm so giddy to see what my favorite artists have been up to. Also, I have a very, very, very special video coming out soon that explains why I've been away for so long, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.